The first time I saw the USS Blackstar, I didn't believe a ship like that could exist, let alone fly. It was massive. Blacker than the void it floated in, armored like a god's fist, and armed to the teeth with weaponry that broke treaties just by being mentioned. Even standing in the hangar of the Vanguard Prime, our fleet command ship, the Blackstar looked like a beast chained only because it allowed it. I was a tactical lieutenant back then. 32, bitter, tired, and fresh off watching my brother die on the surface of Hadar 6 after a coalition strike. They called it a containment effort. We called it a massacre. Civilians, children. The coalition didn't care. Humans were the roaches of the galaxy, primitive, emotional, and expendable. We begged for a seat at the table. They gave us a seat in the dirt. Command kept whispering about something big coming, a final solution to the war. I'd heard rumors, same as everyone else, but most of us figured it was just another bluff. Then the Blackstar arrived. They didn't launch it with a ceremony, no speeches, no anthems, just silence. It was escorted in by 2 dreadnoughts, which looked like toys next to it. I remember asking my commanding officer, "Is that thing even legal under galactic protocol?" He didn't answer. Just stared at it like a priest staring at a miracle or a curse. 2 days later, they deployed her for the first time. The target was Vexar Prime, a fortified coalition world orbiting a red giant. Their high command thought the war was over after the siege of Epsilon Ridge. They said Earth would surrender within the month. They even released a broadcast, one of their counselors smirking into the camera, saying we should learn to accept servitude with grace. The Blackstar hit them like a wrathful god. I wasn't on board. I watched the feed from orbit with every other officer in our division. The ship didn't broadcast warnings, didn't engage in dialogue. It didn't even issue a targeting scan. It just appeared out of FTL, like a nightmare arriving ahead of schedule. Then the main gun fired. I still remember the silence before the impact, like the universe itself was holding its breath. The shot wasn't a beam or a missile, it was something else. A kinetic payload wrapped in gravitational shearing. A shell designed not just to penetrate, but to tear space-time like a paper bag. It hit the Vexar command bunker from orbit. The entire upper hemisphere of the planet lit up in white-blue flame. No alarms. No survivors. I remember watching a coalition cruiser, twice the size of a Terran battle carrier, try to flee. The Blackstar's secondary railguns tore it to pieces mid-jump. The ship didn't even slow down. By the time the dust settled, they said 37 million were dead. Not soldiers, people, entire cities reduced to ash. Some of us celebrated, some cried, a few vomited. I just sat there staring. We'd built a monster and it was ours. The Blackstar wasn't a warship. It was punishment, a statement, a reminder that humanity, for all its flaws and failings, could still create something that terrified the rest of the galaxy. And it didn't run on fuel. It ran on grief, on rage, on every name etched into the memorial walls back on Earth. They tried to cover it up, of course. The coalition called it a human atrocity, said we'd violated intergalactic law, the same law that never protected us when our colonies were bombed, when our trade convoys were boarded, when our women and children were sold on black market rings out in the Draconis systems. No one gave a damn until we fought back. And now they were afraid. Within a week, 7 coalition worlds surrendered. Others fortified. Some tried to negotiate. But the truth hung in the silence between them all. The Blackstar was coming. And it didn't care about diplomacy. It cared about fire. They called the Blackstar a lot of things in the days that followed. The Doom Engine. The Scourge of the Void. Hell's flagship. But on Earth, in quiet corners of burned-out cities and candlelit homes, missing fathers, brothers, sons, we just called her Justice. 2 weeks after Vexar Prime fell, Command pushed us deeper into hostile territory. Fast. Too fast, if you asked me. But that was the thing about war. It doesn't ask for second opinions. It eats hesitation like it eats everything else. I got transferred to the Blackstar just before the assault on Foros Cal, a joint military-civilian outpost that supplied weapons to the entire inner coalition line. The moment I stepped aboard her, I understood. This wasn't a ship. It was a doctrine. Every corridor was lined in black plating that absorbed sound. The air smelled like ozone and oil. It felt like walking into a cathedral where war was God and silence was worship. No idle chatter, no laughs, just the low hum of reactors and the distant clink of weapon systems being loaded, checked, polished like sacred relics. The crew? Hardened, soulless almost. No green recruits, no families waiting back home. The men and women aboard Blackstar were all broken in some way. Burned, scarred, amputated, or just emotionally hollowed out. Survivors of Earth's worst battles. They didn't talk about medals or missions, only about vengeance, like the war had eaten their names and replaced them with purpose. My roommate in the barracks was a guy named Strickland. Heavy-set, red-eyed, stank of nicotine and regret. He didn't speak to me for 3 days. Then, during a combat briefing, he leaned over and said, "You ever see a kid's lungs pulled out by a gravity mine?" I shook my head. He just nodded, looked away and said, "Then you're not ready. But you will be." We dropped into Foros Cal under blackout conditions. No broadcast, no warning. That was Blackstar's signature. Total silence until the moment hell opened. The ship's gravity suppressors allowed it to hover just inside atmospheric range. From there, it rained pure death. I worked tactical coordination. My job was to mark targets for annihilation, military bunkers, shield generators, orbital defense silos. But I saw it all from the inside. I watched our main railgun fire twice in 10 seconds. The first shot flattened a munitions factory. The second created a crater 3 miles wide and 1,000 feet deep. Dust clouds choked the horizon like smoke from a funeral pyre. Civilians ran, screamed. Coalition troopers tried to fire back, but they might as well have thrown pebbles at a hurricane. We weren't there to negotiate. We weren't there to win hearts. We were there to end things. And we did. The resistance broke within 4 hours. Our ground forces, only 30 squads strong, mopped up what remained. Not with pity, with purpose. I went down with them for the aftermath. Blackstar always sent someone from command to verify asset destruction. That day, it was me. I remember walking through the ruins of Foros Cal's primary city, if you could even call it a city anymore. It looked like someone had dragged God's hand across the landscape and decided mercy wasn't worth the effort. Bodies lay in the streets, alien, human, some fused into the wreckage, some crawling, still alive, half their skin gone, begging in languages I didn't understand. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My ears still rang from the sound of our guns. My heart still raced like I was back on Hadar, holding my brother's shattered helmet. The weight of the air, the smell of burnt flesh. It didn't disturb me. That was the part that did. You'd think I'd feel guilt. Maybe once I would've, but guilt's a luxury. You bury it like the dead. And if you don't, it buries you. Strickland found me kneeling beside what used to be a marketplace. A woman lay crumpled near a food cart, her chest caved in, eyes open, blank. No weapon in sight, just a bracelet with a child's name written on it in silver thread. She was probably feeding soldiers, he said flatly. They all do. I didn't argue, just stood up and walked on. That's the trick, you see. You don't ask who deserved it. You ask who could have stopped it. And when the answer is no one, you just keep moving forward. The coalition's official response came 3 days later. A full embargo on Earth, formal war declaration, and a bounty placed on the Blackstar's commanding officers. Didn't matter. They'd been marked men the moment the first shell left our barrel. The next 2 months blurred into one long, brutal campaign. Coalition fleets scattered like rats every time the Blackstar appeared. They tried using decoys, cloaked mines, plasma fields, but it didn't matter. Our tech was ahead of theirs. Our resolve? Far beyond it. We weren't fighting for territory anymore. We were fighting to remind them that Earth existed, not as a footnote, not as a vassal, but as a force that wouldn't be ignored again. Then came the day everything changed. It started with a message, encrypted, high priority, from Command Earthside. A whisper of a target so deeply classified even our data streams couldn't access it. Operation Leviathan. A coalition relic base hidden inside a brown dwarf star. Deep, ancient, alien. I sat in the strategy room when the feed came in. Admiral Thorne, Blackstar's commander, stood in full combat dress, arms behind his back, face carved from stone. "This is it," he said. "Not just a weapons depot, not just a stronghold. This is the backbone of their legacy, a vault of ancient tech they've used to keep us under their boot for 50 damn years. If we take this, they break. Completely." We knew what he meant. Without Leviathan, the coalition couldn't maintain jump gate dominance. They couldn't coordinate fleet intelligence or planetary scans. In short, they'd be blind and crippled, and the war would tip. "But it won't be easy," Thorne added. "It's protected by failsafes, auto turrets that run on dark matter, AI constructs older than half the galaxy. You won't survive if you hesitate, so don't." He paused, eyes locking on every face in the room. "This isn't about Earth anymore," he said. "This is about making sure they never forget who lit the stars red." We jumped within the hour. The Blackstar shuddered as we pierced the gravity field of the brown dwarf. Shields burned white-hot. Bulkheads groaned. Even the AI had to reroute cooling systems to prevent meltout. The base was buried in the heart of the storm, miles of steel wrapped in a swirling sea of toxic fire and solar pressure. Nothing else could get near it, not alive. But we weren't like anything else. Our hull took a beating. Heat shields cracked. One of our scout ships was swallowed whole by magnetic interference. But we got there. And when we did, we let loose everything. No negotiation, no warning, just wrath. I sat at my station, hands on targeting feeds, watching as our drones deployed in full swarms, riding pulses of nullgrav down into the depths. Every second brought new reports, breaches, burns, casualties. Then came the voice of our drone commander. "Sir, we've got something. A vault. Massive. Looks like, hell, I don't know. Looks like a goddamn brain wrapped in steel." "What's inside?" Thorne asked. The feed stuttered, flared, then cleared. Inside the vault was tech. Old, organic, pulsing with light and energy. Something not even the coalition fully understood. Their entire dominance built on salvaging and repurposing this thing. We didn't try to take it. We planted charges and walked away. When it blew, it took half the dwarf star's surface with it. And then, silence. The coalition's chatter died. Their fleets blinked offline. Entire systems went dark. The Leviathan tech was their backbone, and now it was gone. We limped out of that firestorm with half our armor melted, but with our mission complete. The Blackstar had just rewritten the rules. The days that followed weren't filled with cheers, no flags, no parades, just a quiet, hard realization among the crew. We had become the very thing we once feared. Not monsters, not heroes, just men with fire in their hands and no way to put it down. And in that silence, something darker stirred. Because once you've burned gods, what's left to burn? After Leviathan fell, everything went quiet. Too quiet. No ships in our sector, no patrols, No resistance, just static across long-range comms and dead silence from Coalition space. Some of the guys called it victory. I didn't. I knew better. You don't kill a god and expect the sky not to notice. You don't cripple an empire and wait for flowers. Something was coming. You could feel it in the hull, like the ship itself was bracing for a storm we couldn't see. The Blackstar drifted in orbit around a dead moon for 5 days, while Command sorted through what came next. The crew didn't relax. There was no such thing as downtime on that ship. We ran drills, sharpened routines, cleaned already spotless decks. Anything to avoid the creeping realization that we'd gone too far to ever come back. Strickland sat across from me in the galley on the 3rd day, peeling the label off his protein tube with nervous fingers. "You know what the problem is?" he said without looking up. I raised an eyebrow. "You only peel that label when you're about to tell me something that's gonna ruin my night." He half laughed. "We're not in a war anymore, man. We were the war. Now we're the aftermath. No one fights the aftermath." I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. He was right. Coalition broadcasts came in on the 6th day. We expected threats, declarations, rage. What we got was surrender. Or at least that's what they wanted us to think. An old admiral, white-skinned, 6 eyes, uniform torn and stained, appeared on every screen in the war room. "We concede Earth's right to independence," he said. "We acknowledge humanity's strength. We beg no forgiveness, but offer an end. Total ceasefire. No conditions." The room was silent. Thorne stood in the center, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "No terms?" he asked. The screen flickered. "Number just peace, before more is lost." They said all the right things. Said they'd dismantle their frontline fleets. Said Earth could have sovereignty over all former Terran colonies. Said we'd earned our place among the stars. But I saw it in his eyes. He wasn't surrendering. He was stalling, trying to buy time. And Thorne saw it too. "We're not buying it," he said, voice flat. "Not until we see the bodies of their war council strung up over their capital." The room stayed silent. No one questioned it. How could we? After what we'd seen, what we'd done, there was only one way out of this war, and it didn't involve treaties. So we kept moving. The next target was High Court, a fortress world deep within Coalition territory. Not just another stronghold. Their heart, their cradle, their seat of power. The mission wasn't to burn it. It was to break it, utterly. No survivors, no monuments, no symbols left standing. It was the kind of job that made even the Blackstar's crew wince. We started prepping immediately. And that's when everything went to hell. It started small, a glitch in navigation. Then a sensor malfunction. Minor stuff. We've dealt with worse in our sleep. But then the power flickered. Entire decks went dark for seconds. Weapons systems desynced. Internal AI began misfiring protocols, randomly locking hatches, rerouting life support. One of our lower engineers got trapped in a coolant duct for 6 hours. We thought it was sabotage, maybe a spy, a last-ditch Coalition rat on board. We tore the ship apart looking for one. But there was no spy, only something we didn't understand. I was in the CIC when it happened, the real event that told us this wasn't just a system failure. The ship spoke. Not the AI, the ship. The intercom screamed, voices overlapping, distorted but human, thousands of them, crying, screaming, begging, and one, right at the center, cold and sharp. "Stop." Everything stopped. Lights, sound, power, gone in an instant. Total blackout. Then one word pulsed through the ship's emergency speakers. "Why?" I froze. Strickland was standing next to me, jaw slack, hands trembling. It wasn't just static. It wasn't just feedback. It was them, the dead. Leviathan hadn't just been a vault of tech. It had been something else. a tomb, a soul bank, a prison of consciousness bound to machine. And when we blew it up, we didn't destroy it. We freed it. Something ancient. Something built to watch, to remember, maybe even judge. And it had come with us. The Blackstar, our war god, had brought home a passenger, and now it wanted answers. The crew cracked, not all at once, not like in the movies. First it was just twitchiness, cold sweats, nightmares. Then came the hallucinations, dead friends walking the halls, whispers behind closed doors, blood dripping from sealed vents. One guy, Ramos, one of the most solid techs we had, snapped on day 9, walked into the torpedo bay and opened the launch tube. No suit, no scream, just gone. Strickland started praying again. Not to any god we knew, just to something. "I don't think it wants revenge," he said one night, voice hollow. "I think it wants us." Thorne tried to contain it, issued lockdowns, isolated sectors, ordered full AI purges and reboots. But it was too late. The Blackstar was no longer ours. It was theirs. The War Council called us back to Earth, demanded reports, asked why High Court hadn't burned yet. We ignored them, because we weren't soldiers anymore. We were inmates, and the prison was moving on its own. On day 11, we lost communication with Earth entirely. The Blackstar shifted course, without command, without approval, toward the Sol system, toward home. We tried to stop it. Thorne pulled the core plugs, rerouted fusion relays, burned half the fuel cells to freeze the engines. Didn't matter. The ship kept going. Like it knew. Like they knew. They weren't done with us. Not until we answered the question. Why? I don't know who decided it. Maybe Thorne, maybe the ghosts. But on day 13, every crew member was ordered to gather in the launch bay. All of us, every last one. And the lights dimmed. The air got heavy, and that voice came again. Low, quiet. "Why did you burn us?" And this time, someone answered. It wasn't Thorne. It was Strickland. He stepped forward, hands shaking, eyes wet. "Because we had nothing left," he shouted. "You took our people, our homes. You made us beg." He was crying now. "You made us forget what it meant to feel, so we built something that could kill without feeling." No response. Just silence. Then the voice came again. "Then you are like us." And that was it. The lights returned. The ship calmed. Whatever was haunting it, whatever force we'd unleashed, it didn't leave, but it stopped fighting and let us go. We returned to Earth on day 17. The war was over, but no one cheered. Because we hadn't won. We'd just become something worse than the enemy. Something they'd feared. Not because we were strong, but because we understood. We weren't human anymore, not really. We were survivors. And the Blackstar? She was the grave we sailed in. The return to Earth was supposed to be a triumph. Instead, we were met with silence. No honor guard, no red carpets, no salutes. Just a perimeter of dreadnoughts and planetary defense cannons aimed square at the Blackstar, like they were ready to put us down if we twitched the wrong way. I don't blame them. If I were in their place, I would have done the same. A warship like the Blackstar doesn't come home after what we did. It doesn't limp back in covered in cosmic ash and radiation scars with a ghost in its belly and call it peace. We docked at Earth Station Argus, the military's outer ring bastion, a slab of steel and paranoia orbiting just outside the thermosphere. Before our docking clamps had even secured, the entire crew was ordered to disembark, unarmed, hands raised. We complied. Every last one of us stepped off that ship like inmates walking out of a ruined asylum. Not proud, not defiant, just tired. They separated us immediately, debriefed, interrogated, scanned for foreign tech, parasitic influence, neurological tampering. They couldn't find anything. That was the first mistake. They thought this thing, this presence, could be measured by machines. but it wasn't in our blood. It was in our memories. They held me in an isolation pod for 72 hours. Bare walls, constant surveillance, a food tray that clicked open like a prison cell door. They asked me the same questions over and over. What happened aboard the Blackstar? Why did it go rogue? What was Operation Leviathan really targeting? I answered everything. And still they didn't believe me, because the truth didn't make sense. How do you explain to a bureaucrat in a polished uniform that your warship became possessed by the angry dead of a civilization no longer known by name? That its voice wasn't in code, but in sorrow? They think war is about tactics, logistics, intel, but war's just pain stacked high enough to collapse logic, and we were walking proof of that. Eventually, they let us go. Some of the crew went home, tried to disappear into civilian life. A few started drinking themselves into oblivion. Strickland didn't speak at all for the first few weeks. He just stared at walls like they were whispering to him. Me? I couldn't go home. Not after Hadar. Not with my brother's grave empty and my family scattered. I took a bunk in an old vet shelter near Luna Base, worked nights at a fusion cell dump, watched the Earthrise in silence every shift. Tried to forget, but the Blackstar didn't stay quiet. 6 weeks after we docked her, she woke up. Unmanned. Unguided. She powered her systems in the middle of a moonless cycle, lit up Argus Station like a goddamn Christmas tree. Shields up, weapons armed, navigation online. But she didn't fire, didn't move, didn't ask, just pulsed her lights, red, then black, over and over, like a heartbeat, like a warning. Command panicked. They sealed her, scrambled engineers, even considered blowing her out of orbit. And I should have stayed away. But I didn't. I couldn't. Something about her, about them, still echoed in my skull like a buried scream. So I pulled a favor. A contact in naval records owed me for saving his ass on Ephra 9. He got me clearance for a maintenance scan. Just a 30-minute walkthrough, nothing more. But I knew what I was really doing. I was going back in. They suited me up and launched me in solo. The docking bay hissed as I stepped through. Everything was exactly as we left it. Except for the smell. There shouldn't have been one. Scrubbers had been running since we powered down. But the moment I crossed the threshold, it hit me. Ash. Burnt ozone and blood. The same scent that clung to Foros-Cal. The same that lived in the air after Leviathan fell. I made my way through the corridors. No power, no AI voice, just the low hum of something sleeping with one eye open. And then I reached the CIC. The door was already open. Inside, the lights were dim. Console screens flickered like dying candles. And in the center chair, Thorne's chair, someone was sitting. I froze, every muscle in my body locked. The figure didn't move, just sat there, facing the forward viewport, hands on the armrests. I stepped closer, slow, cautious. And then it spoke. "Did you ever wonder," it said in Thorne's voice, "why we came back?" I couldn't breathe. "Admiral?" I whispered. No reply, just silence. Then it turned. It looked like Thorne, but only on the surface. The skin was too pale, eyes too black, like twin voids trying to mimic what it meant to be human. "We didn't return for redemption," it said. "We returned to finish what they started." My blood ran cold. "What are you?" It stood and smiled. "The Blackstar isn't a ship anymore," it said. "She's a doorway, and we are what walked through." I backed up. My hand went to my sidearm, only to remember I'd been disarmed. Didn't matter. It wouldn't have helped. The thing in Thorne's shape stepped forward once, then vanished. Not into smoke, not into light, just gone. I stood there, heart pounding, mind racing, staring into the chair it had vacated, and the console in front of it lit up. A single message. No encryption, no protocol, just 4 words. The fire spreads next. I ran. I don't remember the trip back. I don't remember the debrief, or the psych eval, or the fact that I screamed for an hour before they sedated me. I only remember the last thing I saw before the CIC door closed behind me. The Blackstar's core, once dark, once still, was glowing again, like a second heart, like it never stopped beating. They locked me in a black site cell for 4 days after I returned. No contact, no light, just the hum of recycled air and the cold sting of restraints digging into my wrists. I don't blame them. They think I'm infected. And maybe I am. They don't say it out loud, but I see it in their faces every time they check the surveillance feed. Like they're waiting for something to crawl out of my mouth, for my eyes to go black, for me to start whispering in that dead voice that came out of Thorne's body. I don't give them the satisfaction. I just wait, because I know what's coming. I saw it in the Blackstar's core. Felt it like a weight in my chest, a pressure behind the eyes that doesn't go away when you blink. The kind of knowledge that buries itself so deep, you stop knowing where it ends and you begin. The fire spreads next. I thought it was a threat. It wasn't. It was a warning. And Earth didn't listen. The first signs were subtle. A comm relay at Mars went silent. Then a civilian vessel out of Titan vanished without distress calls. Naval patrols sent to investigate never checked in. Command dismissed it all as interference. Standard deep space anomalies. Communication drift. Idiots. We'd spent years being ignored by the galaxy. Now we were ignoring ourselves. But the Blackstar never slept. 3 days after my release, it powered up again. No pilots, no crew, just movement. She disengaged from Argus Station under full lockdown protocol and repositioned herself in Earth orbit without clearance. Her weapons remained cold, but her shields were up, fully charged. And she broadcast something. Not in English, not in Coalition Standard, not in any recognized language. It was sound, broken rhythms, synthetic breathing, screams stretched into static. A looped feed of raw audio chaos beamed across every frequency, reaching every listening post in Sol's system. That's when the suicides started. Not mass, not dramatic, just one by one. Officers, techs, engineers, people who had no connection to the Blackstar, no history with the war. Their only link? They'd heard the signal. I visited one of the bodies. Wasn't supposed to. Pulled another favor. Dead man's name was Kelrin, 28, orbital comms specialist. I found him in his bunk, slit wrists, eyes wide open, mouth stretched in a way no living face should ever bend. The walls around him were covered in the same message, over and over. We burned the stars. They burn us back. I knew then it wasn't just in our minds. It was in the system. A digital plague. Not just haunting memories, actual code. A virus that infected machines, brains, maybe both. A living echo of whatever Leviathan once contained. And we'd brought it home like a stray dog with rabies, thinking it could be tamed. Strickland found me that night. I hadn't seen him in 2 weeks. He looked worse than ever. Thin. Pale. Eyes sunken like he hadn't slept since we docked. He didn't knock. Just walked into the shelter's communal kitchen and dropped a data drive on the table. "Don't plug it in," he said. I looked at him, confused. "It's already playing." I frowned. "What the hell are you talking about?" He pointed to my ears. "You hear it, don't you?" That's when I noticed. The sound. A hum. Low. Subtle, but constant. Like the universe had developed a pulse. It was everywhere, and it was getting louder. "They're waking up," he said. "Not just the Blackstar, all of it. Anything that connects. Any tech that runs deep enough. Every bit of code, every machine that ever touched Coalition data. It's all compromised." I stared at him, numb. "How far?" He laughed. It was hollow. "Farther than you want to know." I tried to go to command the next morning, told them everything, showed them the drive, told them Strickland was right. They detained me again. This time not in a black site. They sent me to a psych ward. Underground, no terminals, no uplinks. Analog everything. Because now they knew. They weren't ignoring the infection anymore. They were quarantining it. But it was too late. Because the fire wasn't just digital. It was emotional, psychological, a thought virus. It didn't spread through wires. It spread through guilt, through the cracks in the human mind that war had left gaping open. And Earth was full of cracks. Every soldier who'd ever pulled a trigger. Every officer who'd green-lit an orbital strike. Every civilian who looked away while the stars burned. We were soaked in oil. And now someone had struck a match. The first riots broke out in New Jakarta. They blamed AI malfunctions, said drones had misread movement patterns and opened fire on a protest group. 15 dead. Then came the mutiny on Station Oriole. A full naval crew turned their weapons on their own officers, said they were hearing voices in the static, seeing things in the ship's reflections. 37 dead before command purged the airlocks. I watched the footage, and I knew. This wasn't infection. This was judgment. Everything we did out there, the atrocities, the firestorms, the slaughter, it hadn't vanished when we came home. It had followed us. And now, it wanted balance. I tracked down Thorne's family, his widow, his son, not to warn them, just to understand, to see if anything human still echoed in the lives we left behind. His wife was gone. Suicide. No note. His son, 16, was already in a correctional facility. Assault, rage issues. Said his father left something inside him. That was all I needed. This thing, whatever it was, had roots deeper than the war. It didn't come from the Leviathan vault. It had always been inside us. The war just cracked the shell. And the Blackstar? It wasn't the beginning. It was the mirror. It showed us what we were when the mask fell off. And now Earth was starting to look just like that ship. Silent, haunted, and waiting for someone to light the final fuse. I went back one last time. Snuck into the orbital tether station during a systems reboot. Used old credentials, brute-forced my way into a lifter pod, and took it straight to the Blackstar. She didn't resist. Didn't fire. She opened her bay doors like she'd been waiting. I walked through the dead corridors again, this time not afraid, because I knew now. We belonged to her, not the other way around. And in the CIC she gave me her final message. No screen, no audio, just a single projection, beamed directly into my thoughts. We didn't come to destroy Earth, we came to finish it. I understood. Earth wasn't the prize. It was the final battlefield, the place where humanity would either face what it had become or drown in the ash it had scattered across the stars. And the Blackstar? She wasn't going to fire a single shot. She was just going to wait. Because in the end, we'd burn ourselves. The first city fell without a shot being fired. It was Toronto, population 16 million, gone dark in 17 hours. No nuclear strike, no invasion, no enemy landing force, just silence. Command lost contact around 0340 Terran time. Surveillance feeds froze, communications jammed. When a recon drone finally passed overhead, it found a city abandoned, lights still glowing, cars frozen mid-traffic, doorways open, people gone, every single one. Not dead, not fleeing, just gone. And etched into the snow of the main plaza, a message carved by hand. We saw ourselves. We couldn't stay. It wasn't a warning. It was a confession. The Blackstar remained in low orbit, dormant. No weapons active, no movement. Just there, like a black hole with no gravity, waiting for the rest of the world to catch up with what it already knew. They called it psychological contagion, an advanced mimetic trigger embedded into the ship's presence, disrupting cognition through exposure to traumatic memory. They called it many things. None of it mattered. We knew what it was. It was the truth, and we'd carried it back with us. The virus didn't attack systems. It attacked conscience. In every man, woman, and child who had enough guilt in their hearts to hear the signal. And in this world, that meant everyone. Riots became common. Not over politics, not over hunger, over identity. People turned on each other not because of belief, but because they were trying to forget who they were, what they'd done, who they'd allowed to suffer during the war, who they'd left behind while they celebrated victories built on orbital glass. I walked through New Berlin 2 days after the Toronto event. The streets were scorched, not from weapons, but from burning libraries, art centers, even schools. They weren't looting, they were erasing, trying to wipe clean anything that reminded them of the past. I saw a man smash his own family portrait with a brick. He looked me in the eye and said, "I let my daughter starve on Titan while I served this empire. I'm not that man anymore." Then he lit the frame on fire. He smiled as it burned. This wasn't madness, it was penance, and it was spreading. Command tried to push back. They deployed calm units, squads of shock troopers outfitted with neural dampeners, pumping sedatives into the air, jamming all wavelengths within range. They lasted a week. Then, one by one, they started defecting. Not to the enemy, to nothing. They dropped their weapons, walked into the crowd, and disappeared. Some of them carved messages into their own skin before vanishing. Same words, over and over. "We deserve this." I found Strickland again during the blackout in South Carolina. He was walking barefoot through the woods outside the ruins of Charleston, muttering to himself. When I stopped him, he looked through me like I wasn't real. "You hear it now," he said. I didn't reply. "You don't need to answer," he said. "It already knows." I took him in, cleaned him up, got us a hideout in an old storm shelter, one of those forgotten fallout bunkers from back when humans feared nukes more than ghosts. For a few days, we survived. But you can't outrun a mirror. Not when it's in your head. I started dreaming again. Not the kind of dreams with monsters and teeth, but dreams with faces. Real ones. People I knew. People I'd watched die. One night I dreamed of my brother. He was still wearing his Hadar combat armor, helmet cracked open, chest plate black with burn marks. He sat on the edge of my bed, calm. "Do you remember what I said before the jump?" he asked. I nodded. "You said we'd make history." He smiled. "Yeah," he whispered, "just not the kind they write in books." I woke up with tears I didn't know I still had. Outside, cities continued to dim. One by one, the lights went out. Not from destruction, from surrender. People weren't fighting the collapse. They were welcoming it. Not all at once. Not like dominoes. More like candles being blown out in the wind. Some resisted. Bunkered down. Tried to maintain order. But those enclaves didn't last. Not because they were overrun, but because they turned on each other. You can't build a future when everyone's choking on the past. Then came the message. It was broadcast on every frequency, every channel, every terminal, hijacked mid-sentence, mid-conversation, mid-stream. It wasn't a voice, it was a face. Thorne's face. Not alive, not dead. Just there, expression blank, eyes dark, skin like paper soaked in void, no lips moved. But the message was clear. You built your gods out of fire and your peace out of bones. You asked the stars for silence. We answered. Then it was gone. No commands, no threats, just confirmation. We'd brought it on ourselves. I met with one of the last resistance leaders 2 weeks after the blackout in Chicago. General Herron. A bulldog of a man. Fought through 6 planetary campaigns. The kind of guy who used to punch his way through politics. He looked like a ghost. Hair gone, beard unshaved, eyes twitching every few seconds like he expected the walls to breathe. "You came here to help?" he asked. "No," I said. "I came to watch." He didn't even flinch. "That's what we are now, huh? Watchmen on a crumbling wall." I didn't argue. "What do you think it is?" he asked after a long silence. I stared out the bunker window, watched the fires burn low in the distant skyline. "Memory," I said. "Refusing to stay buried." He nodded slowly. "Then we're already dead." That was the last time I saw him. 3 days later, the Chicago bunker self-sealed. No signals since, no survivors reported. The Blackstar remains in low orbit, no movement, no fire, just presence, a reminder. Every now and then, she lights up. Brief pulses like heartbeat rhythms across the atmosphere. Not attacking, not responding. Just watching. Like she's waiting for the final light to go out. Like she knows it will. And I do too. Because we didn't survive the war. We carried it home. In our bones, in our thoughts, in our silence. And now Earth is what we left behind across 1,000 burned worlds. Not a victory, not a future. Just a tomb we haven't sealed yet. I buried Strickland beneath a rusted comms tower somewhere in the Utah Badlands. Didn't say a prayer. He wouldn't have wanted one. Just stood there, staring at the cracked earth, the empty sky, and the last real friend I had. He'd gone quiet in his sleep. Peaceful, if that means anything anymore. No dreams, no visions, just breath. Then nothing. He lasted longer than most. That's the thing about men like him, men who stared too long into the flame and didn't blink. They don't scream when they go. They just go. Afterward, I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing, wondering how the hell we ended up here. Earth's skies once held promise. Glittering satellites, orbital elevators, traffic lanes busy with commerce and ambition. Now? Black. Still, like the stars were holding their breath. Cities were empty shells. Half the global population had gone dark. The rest wandered in cults, tribes, packs of broken thinkers and believers trying to find meaning in what came after humanity. Some lit fires and danced. Others slit their throats and left poems. But none of them fought. Not anymore. Because you can't fight the truth. And the Blackstar was truth made steel. But that's not what kept me moving. What kept me moving was a whisper that grew louder the more I stared into silence. Not from the ship. Not from ghosts. From me. Because guilt is a kind of fire too. And mine hadn't gone out yet. 3 days after Strickland's death, I made the hike back toward the ruins of Denver. An old AI archive sat beneath the mountains, a backup system from before the war, built to maintain civil infrastructure during long-term blackouts. My gut told me there was something still breathing inside that database, something untouched by the contagion. I found the hatch half buried in dust, surrounded by cracked pavement and faded graffiti. Silence is consent. Broke the seal with a thermal torch and descended into darkness. No lights, no sound, just stairwell after stairwell until I hit steel. I jacked in with a portable bypass, forced the core to open long enough to spit out a stream of raw data. Old logs, pre-collapse. And one name. Nara Reyes, Naval AI architect. One of the original minds who helped design the first-gen cognitive firewalls used on Earth's defense satellites. She'd vanished after the Coalition War, presumed dead or disappeared. But one of the logs said otherwise. Last ping, 11 months ago. Location: North Alaska Exclusion Zone, the Arctic wastes, where nothing was supposed to survive. but maybe, just maybe, she'd built something that had. I left that night. Didn't tell anyone. No one left to tell. The roads north were hell. Cold, sharp, dead. Ghost towns littered the path, filled with more relics than people. Statues wrapped in flags, broken VR rigs playing propaganda loops, skeletons curled around relics from lives they didn't want to remember. At one point I passed a mass grave dug into the side of a mountain. Above it, scrawled in blood, "Forgive us, if you can." But I wasn't here for forgiveness. I was here for answers. And if Reyes was still alive, she might have the last one. I found her 3 weeks later, bunker deep beneath the ice shelf, shielded by old EarthGov tech, analog locked, no net access, pure isolation. She nearly shot me when I knocked, but I spoke the override code from the AI core's final log. She opened the door. She looked half-starved, thin, pale, wild hair, but her eyes, still sharp, still human. "You're late," she said. And I knew she'd been waiting. She took me inside, fed me nutrient paste and warmed water, then, without a word, led me to her lab. What I saw there almost made me drop to my knees. She'd rebuilt it. Not the Blackstar, but something older, smaller, an idea. She called it Project Severance. A pulse weapon, not physical, not thermal, cognitive, designed to disentangle the signal from the neural roots it fed on. A psychic rupture that, in theory, could disconnect the fire from the minds it infected. "Why hasn't anyone used this?" I asked. She laughed, short and bitter. "Because they stopped believing it could be undone." I stared at the machine. It looked like a cathedral built out of wires and old pain. "How does it work?" "Pain," she said. "Real pain. You have to channel it, feed it. The system maps your neural pathways, finds the threads where the infection took hold, and pulls it out." "And the cost?" She didn't blink. "You lose everything you were." That night I stood on the edge of her icy balcony, staring up at the orbiting shadow of the Blackstar, still silent, still watching. I knew what had to happen. If I couldn't kill it, I'd make it let go. Project Severance required a direct line of sight uplink to the infection's origin point. There was only one. The Blackstar herself. I had to go back, board her one last time. Not to fight, not to plead, but to sever. Reyes helped me prepare, loaded the system into a microcore I could carry in a neural backpack, told me how to deploy it, warned me that if I hesitated even a second, the ship would take me. I didn't hesitate, because I was already hers. What came next was the hardest thing I've ever done. Not the boarding, not the activation. The walk, that final stretch through the ship's lifeless corridors. She didn't stop me, didn't lock the doors, didn't whisper. She just waited, as if curious, as if amused. In the CIC, I placed the core into the interface port. Lights flickered, the hum returned. The voice came, not in speakers, in me. "You came back," it said. "You always do." I didn't answer. I just pressed the switch. The scream that followed wasn't sound. It was pressure, pain. It poured into my skull like molten glass, clawed through my memories, dragged every moment I'd tried to bury to the surface. Hadar, Strickland, my brother's broken body, the orders I gave, the men I left behind, the silence of all the voices I didn't save. But I didn't let go. I held them, felt them, burned with them. And through the pain, I shouted one word. "Enough." The pulse ignited. I don't remember much after that, just white. Then silence. Real silence. Not the kind you hear, but the kind you earn. When I woke, the CIC was empty. No hum, no lights, just a void where the presence had once been. The Blackstar was dead. Or maybe free. Earth didn't return to normal. There's no normal now, but the signal stopped. The suicides stopped. The fires stopped spreading. People are still fractured, but they're alive, trying, building small things again, gardens, songs, stories. The Blackstar remains in orbit, dormant, a monument, a tomb, a reminder. I live in Reyes's bunker now. She passed weeks after the severance, heart failure. I buried her next to Strickland. No gravestones, just memory, because that's what this world needs now. Not fire, not glory, just the courage to remember, and not look away. The skies have been quiet for over a year now. No more signals, no more voices in the static, no more riots, just silence. A real one this time, the kind you don't trust right away. It's been 385 days since I activated severance on the Blackstar. Reyes called it a cognitive detonation, a clean split between infection and host, like removing a tumor without killing the body. The infection, if that's even the right word, wasn't a virus. It was memory. Sentience laced with grief and fire, embedded into machinery, riding the waves of war across stars. We let it in when we burned too many things we never tried to understand. And maybe it let us in too, because it didn't want to control us. It wanted us to remember, to feel what it felt when 1,000 worlds died in silence. But the price was high. Earth's population is half what it was. Cities are still in ruins. The oceans are quieter, the skies grayer. People are thinner, they speak less. There are no more governments, not really. Just coalitions of survivors, settlements working together out of mutual need, not policy. No one says the word nation anymore. But there's peace, a fragile one, not born from treaties or diplomacy, born from exhaustion, from knowing what it feels like to break. And maybe that's what we needed all along. We thought the war ended when the coalition signed their surrender. But the real war didn't end until the Blackstar went quiet, until the screaming in our heads stopped, until the fire didn't spread anymore. And even now she still floats above us, dead, silent, but not forgotten. They wanted to destroy her, turn her into scrap, burn her into the sun. I stopped them, told them to leave her where she was, not as a weapon, but as a reminder. You don't erase history just because it hurts. You live with it. You stare at it every night when the clouds clear and see her dark silhouette crossing the moon. And you remember. That was the point. That was the cost. I still live in Reyes's bunker. It's quiet, cold, but safe. People come sometimes. Pilgrims, really. Survivors of old war campaigns. They come to talk, to ask questions, to leave tokens. Old medals, broken rifles, photos of the dead. Sometimes they just sit outside for hours in silence, facing the horizon, looking up, hoping the Blackstar doesn't wake up again. I tell them she won't. But I don't know for sure. She was never just a ship. Not after what we did to her, and what she showed us. I think about Strickland a lot. About my brother. About Reyes. About Thorne. Was he still in there, somewhere, behind the eyes of that thing that wore his face? Or did we all become something else out there, somewhere in the burning dark? Reyes once told me, trauma isn't what breaks you, it's what builds you. I didn't understand that back then. I do now, because we are built of trauma, of fire, of guilt, of memories we'll never scrub clean. And the only way forward is to carry them. Not to forget, but to carry. Some days I go outside and look at the sky. I see the Blackstar, and I nod. Because I know she's still there, not awake, not angry, just watching. Like me, because someone has to. We tell stories now, around fires, in whispers, in schools that are just tents in the dirt. We tell our children the truth, that we went too far, that we built a monster to protect ourselves, and then became it, that the Blackstar was our mirror, and what we saw nearly destroyed us. But we also tell them that someone stopped it, not a hero, just a man who'd had enough. That matters. We don't have statues anymore. We have scars. And that's better. Because scars mean healing. They mean we're not trying to hide what happened. We're trying to live through it. A boy came to see me last week. 14. Eyes like his father. He didn't say his name, but I knew who he was. Thorne's son. He stood in the doorway for a long time, silent, angry, confused. Then he asked, "Did you kill him?" I looked him in the eyes and told the truth. "No." He stared at me. "Then who did?" I paused, then said, "The war did, and all of us who fed it." He didn't cry. He just nodded once and left. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't have to. The next morning I found a note scratched into the frost on the railing outside. "I forgive you." I sat with that for a long time. Didn't answer. Didn't need to. Because maybe that's the only victory that matters now. Not peace, not power, just forgiveness. Earned. Hard. Quiet. True. And the Blackstar? She keeps watching. Maybe waiting. Or maybe she's already asleep. Dreaming of something better. And maybe, just maybe, so are we.